dialogue in very story-heavy games, when you can just translate like 100 lines of dialogue in a platformer and still end up selling more than twice the copies. For developers, the answer seemed obvious. After the success of Final Fantasy VII, though, developers started to realize there was a market for the genre outside their country and decided to take more risks and bring them over here. Luckily, during the PS1 and PS2 era, most of the great JRPGs did receive English localizations, except for some of the more niche titles, some of which we'll cover in this video. Speaking of, this video is going to focus on mainly older games, as in more recent times, nearly every notable JRPG seems to get an English release these days. Guy Makio Zero, otherwise known as Far East of Eden Zero. Developed by the Red Company, Far East of Eden Zero is the fourth game in a long-running franchise that's unfortunately never left Japan. It's a real shame because the entire series is charming as hell with wacky Japanese humor and vibrant colors. However, not exist yet. So yeah, I haven't actually played this game myself, but with that said, I'm damn sure I would like it, just based on how it looks, considering how much I like the other games in the series. So, unless you guys know how to read Japanese, you're all shit out of luck just like I am. But who knows, maybe one of these days, I'll finally get a translation. It certainly would be a day of rejoice for all the Tesla fans everywhere. One could only dream, right? The next game we have on our list is Shin Megami Tensei 2. Shin Megami Tensei 2 was developed by Atlus and was released for the Super Famicom. There are a couple other Shin Megami Tensei games on the Super Famicom, such as the first Shin Megami Tensei game and Shin Megami Tensei If. The first game actually got an official English iOS port a while back, which I had no idea about until researching for this video, while the second game, along with Shin Megami Tensei If, have still yet to receive official English translations. Come on, Atlas. What are you guys doing? With that said, I'm only going to focus on the second one for this video. As opposed to the more modern setting of the first game, SCP-2 takes place in a post-apocalyptic setting where you assume the control of a gladiator with amnesia by the name of Hawk. Yeah, this was before the whole amnesia trope kind of became so widespread, so cut it a little flat. Other than that, SCP-2 plays out pretty similarly to the first title, with the first-person dungeon crawling and all of the demon recruiting mechanics. Though similar, it's pretty much an improvement in most ways, however. The gameplay is just overall a smoother experience and not quite as grindy. And while the story is much different from the first game, it also takes more of a center stage here. The open-ended nature of the game, with all the multiple possible endings, is still present though. The soundtrack is also just as amazing as ever, with a really cool ambiance that is nearly unrivaled, especially in the 16-bit department. It's so unique. If you're curious to see some of the origins of the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, and don't mind some old school game design, like grinding and frequent random battles, Shin Megami Tensei 2 is definitely worth checking out. A fan translation, luckily, does exist, and it's quite good. Coming up next, we have both The Legend of Heroes Zero no Kaseki and Ao no Kaseki, otherwise known as Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure. These games were both developed by Nihon Falcom and were originally released for the PSP. I'm including both here because, much like the first two Trails in the Sky games, they're direct sequels to one another and basically just one giant story. And while you don't technically have to play the Trails in the Sky games in order to play these, they do feature characters from those games, creating an even bigger, overarching plot. Both of these arcs, if you will, also serve as prerequisites for the Trails of Cold Steel series on later consoles. Yeah, when it comes to deep lore, the Legend of Heroes series is basically like the Star Wars or MCU of JRPGs. Anyway, these two titles are known as the Crossbell arc and have you playing as members of a police force. Yeah, that doesn't really sound that cool, I guess, but trust me, it's a lot more compelling than what it sounds like. Extremely detailed world building and all the rich character development are back just as good as ever. Unfortunately, up until this point though, they were also the only titles from the mainline series never released in the West. Luckily, Falcom actually seems to have heard our prayers and plans to bring these over stateside in 2022 and 2023. Due to how popular the Trails of series has been recently, it's hard to see why they finally came to this decision. Thank God. So yeah, that said, these games won't really be relevant for this list in a year or two's time, so just consider this my way of spreading some more awareness to the older games in the series. They're all absolute classics, well worth playing. The next game we have on our list is Magic School Lunar. Magic School Lunar was developed by both Studio Alex and Game Arts and was released for the Sega Saturn. It's actually an enhanced remake of Lunar Walking School, which came out for the GameCube. Well, I mean, they call it a remake, but it's really just an entirely different game. Not only are the graphics obviously much improved, but there's more playable characters, more complex story, animated cutscenes, battles are presented differently, and much more. Plot-wise, the game takes place 100 years before the first game of the series, Lunar the Silver Star. That said, it's definitely not as epic or story-heavy as that one though. It's more of a lighthearted romp. I'd say the character interactions, the overall charm, leaving this one still a pretty big mystery in a lot of fans' eyes. And unlike Tales of Rebirth, this one probably doesn't stand a chance of ever getting any type of official English release. Our only chance is probably just holding out hope for some of the fans to take it upon themselves. I believe efforts have been made in the past, but sadly, nothing has ever come to fruition. However, if Garo Foods could get a fan translation nearly 20 years after its release, there might still be hope for this one yet. Only time will tell.
you.